Hello and welcome to my first ever video essay. I had the idea to go back and look at my old high school essays and turn them into video essays that I can keep on YouTube for hopefully ever, and so I can go back to them and look at them because there's a bunch of high school essays that I don't have access to because of different accounts, or different middle school essays that I don't have access to, and I would love to know how my writing has improved over the years. So this is going to be my starting point. And the first essay I wanted to talk to you guys about and to read would be the Frankenstein essay that I wrote for one of my English classes. We had to read the OG Mary Shelley Frankenstein, and then we had to write an essay at the end where we got three perspectives, and we had to either agree or disagree, or so we had to look at the different perspectives, see how they interacted, and see what our own opinion was. The first one was that Victor Frankenstein, the main character, that his pursuit for knowledge was overall beneficial and that it was a good thing, and that type of stuff in general is a good thing, and that we should try to pursue knowledge, and that the bad things that happened in the book, they were outweighed by the potential for good, and overall it was a good thing that we should strive for. The next perspective was that he should have pursued it a bit more carefully, and it was a good thing, but it also kind of was bad. He took it too far, and that he should have thought it through a bit more. He shouldn't have created his monster right away, and he should have thought about what it would mean. He shouldn't have gotten carried away and done it. And then perspective 3 is that it was awful and that it was just ignorant, and his pursuit of knowledge was just trying to control nature when it really shouldn't be. And so basically that he was being overambitious and overzealous, and it led to bad things, and that overall in life we shouldn't be that overzealous, and that we shouldn't try and pursue knowledge over anything else. And so I shall start reading it then. Hope you enjoy. So it's titled, How Frankenstein Shows the Necessity of Guidelines. Scientific advancement has been the subject of various debates throughout history, dating back all the way to the first industrial revolution. People worldwide have discussed and argued the numerous pros and cons of searching to control nature for humanity's benefit. Generally, scientific advancement is seen as the mark of an advanced society, so it has been the goal of many nations to beat their competitors. This intense competition and incredibly fast modernization throughout history has even impacted literature. One famous and classic story that warns the audience about the ever-present Industrial Revolution and its dangers would be Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. Shelley uses the fears of romantics to describe a story about a mad scientist who goes too far. However, scientific advancement isn't a black and white issue. Various pros can be seen in the search for nature's secrets, since it, generally, helps humanity as a whole, but oftentimes scientific advancement actually comes at the expense of nature. This is why there needs to be set guidelines to make sure those searching for advancements don't end up hurting humanity in the long run. Scientific advancement usually occurs in the hopes to better the human condition and make life easier and more efficient. Although Frankenstein has a critical opinion on science, it still shows the potential and intention of helping humanity. Victor Frankenstein, a scientist obsessed with nature, initially starts his quest to make a living creature out of dead and inanimate parts in the hopes to become famous for discovering something beyond humanity's grasp. Even though this initial goal of fame and fortune is based on ego, there still is potential for his discoveries to be used in a generous way. For instance, Victor's creature is described as being more agile than normal humans, and being capable of surviving in extreme conditions. These unusual traits are used to exemplify the creature's deformity and irregularity, and serve to make the audience terrified of what the creature is capable of doing to others. Although these traits could show that whatever process Victor used to give the creatures these abilities would have the potential to help humanity. For example, if someone had lost their leg, Victor could learn how to attach a dead leg to the person effectively, or even their own, so that they could walk again. These enhanced traits could be applied to someone who is living and allowed people to have increased agility and resistance to warm and cold temperatures, and potentially bring back dead people, in theory. And that's the key aspect of science. New concepts and discoveries can expand the way humans think about the world. That's why Victor's discovery could be huge in accessing other parts of science that were previously thought to be impossible. However, the townspeople and Victor himself failed to realize this potential because of the seemingly obscene nature of the new practice. Which, fair enough, sounds brutal. This type of hesitant thinking can even be seen in the real world. For instance, when the smallpox vaccine was invented, which was the first vaccine in the entire world, many parents felt uncomfortable giving it to their children, but later vaccines would go on to change the world forever. Edward Jenner, a British physician and scientist, came up with the idea of a smallpox vaccine after seeing a small child fight it off easily, since he had previously gotten cowpox, which was a less severe form of smallpox. This gave him an idea to give people a small amount of cowpox so that their body could fight it off and then gain the immunity to the more severe and deadly smallpox. This idea was initially thought to be crazy. Why would someone want to purposely inject their body with a disease? It was insane to conceptualize, let alone have people's children exposed to it. During the 1800s, when the smallpox vaccine was being given to the public, one anti-vaccinator felt so strongly about having their child stay unvaccinated to the point where they stated, "I would rather allow my legs to be chopped off than I would allow another child of mine to be vaccinated." However, this hesitation was proven to be unnecessary considering how effective the vaccine was. Nowadays, children are required to get certain vaccinations in order to go to school because people have realized the positive effects they have had for all of humanity. Now, the smallpox vaccine has effectively eradicated smallpox off the face of the earth. Without Jenner's creative idea that went against the norm, smallpox and other diseases would still be ravaging humanity today. This is why Victor Frankenstein's discovery that went against nature could have led to something that would better humanity, since history shows that a similar instance of this happened already. If people are open to the possibilities that come from exploring the different aspects of science without rejecting it, then more discoveries will be made that could help humanity. However, not all scientific advancements have led to positive outcomes. Frankenstein shows how horribly wrong science can go if not regulated and understood. Townspeople and others that come into contact with the creature don't understand anything about him and thus are afraid of him. This ends up making the creature feel incredibly insecure and lonely. Throughout his own narration of him spying on the cottagers, which were people that he escaped from Frankenstein's lab, because Frankenstein was like, "Oh my god, this horrible creature," and so he, ran away, and he found these cottagers, and so he decided to spy on them because he wanted to figure out what they were like before he went and introduced himself, and he was just building up the courage to do so. But anyway, throughout his entire narration of that, the creature describes his intense longing for acceptance and belonging. Quote, "I looked upon them as superior beings who would be the arbiters of my future destiny. I formed in my imagination 1,000 pictures of presenting myself to them and their reception of me. I imagined that they would be disgusted until my gentle demeanor and consolating words, I should first win their favor and afterwards their love." Which sounds, unquote, but that sounds so sad and sweet. This explanation of his desire to be accepted shows just how desperately he wanted love, which is why the creature's change to be the hideous monster everyone believes him to be makes sense, because he ends up getting rejected violently by the cottagers and other humans he tries to help. Because when he did introduce himself to the cottagers, they thought that he was, breaking in and that he was gonna, he was like a monster, and so they ended up, hitting him, I think, with, I can't remember if they just, boxed him or they got, a weapon and, hit him. But yeah, that's what I mean by violently. Anyways, Victor was foolish to think letting his creature roam free and figure life out on his own would lead to a positive outcome. He himself believed that the creature was hideous, yet he allowed him to roam off into the world unchecked. In this way, Victor was negligent and irresponsible. After this rejection, the creature ends up killing many of Victor's loved ones. spoilers, which shows how horribly Victor's pursuit for knowledge and scientific advancement ended up being. Countless other real-life scientific advancements have led to similar damaging results. A huge example would be fossil fuel factories and their contribution to global warming. Numerous studies show how the excessive carbon emissions from these factories have caused the Earth's carbon cycle to be completely off balance. The increased carbon output into the atmosphere has led to the heating of the planet, since more of the heat from the sun is being trapped inside. This massive increase in temperature worldwide has led to the destruction and death of environments and creatures. James Henson, an American professor, states, quote, "Coal is the single greatest threat to civilization and all life on our planet," unquote. Henson's article shows how negatively these power plants have affected the environment as a whole, and why they need to be shut down in order to protect the safety of the entire world, according to him. This is an instance where science aimed to advance for the good of humanity, namely so people could have electricity, ended up harming humanity and the environment in the long run. Frankenstein was a warning of this starting to happen in the Industrial Revolution, and now industry has gotten to the world-damaging levels Shelley and other romantics of the time feared it would. All the pros and cons of scientific advancements show that in order for humanity to progress in a humane and safe way, there needs to be a balance between ambition and restraint. Frankenstein could have gone differently if Victor had accepted his creature and tried to teach him what it is to be human. If Victor had done this instead of rejecting his creature and calling him a demon, the creature probably wouldn't have become the monster Victor and the other humans feared that he was. The creature even states to Victor before starting his story about why he murdered William, Victor's brother, that he wouldn't have done heinous acts if Victor or anyone had shown him any ounce of compassion. Quote, "Everywhere I see bliss, from which I alone am irrevocably excluded. I was benevolent and good. Mercy made me a fiend. Make me happy, and I shall again be virtuous." Unquote. This plea shows that the creature's journey could have been a lot different if Victor and other people would have treated him differently. The creature had only done horrible things because he was angry and upset. This is why Victor needed to be more responsible with this creature. If he had shown him love and compassion, then he would have been more open to sharing that love with others instead of spreading misery. Victor's ambition and eventual discovery could be used for good if he would have been more responsible with it. Guidelines in real life are necessary to regulate the pursuit of scientific advancement, so ethical lines don't get crossed. For instance, whenever scientists want to learn about the human mind and how it operates, organizations set rules for proper human testing. In the textbook Real World Psychology 2nd edition, the authors state that the American Psychological Association and the Association for Psychological Science are organizations that have placed certain guidelines on human psychological testing, which include informed consent, voluntary participation, confidentiality, and restricted use of deception. These regulations are necessary for safe testing so that researchers don't go too far and permanently scar someone. Scientific advancement is required for the improvement of society, but it needs to be regulated and understood. People need to be checked to make sure they don't go too far and end up hurting humanity in the world, but they still need to have freedom to explore new ideas and new and innovative ideas so that scientists can find creative solutions to the world's problems. Ultimately, various pros and cons exist in relation to scientific advancement. However, there needs to be a balance between ambition and restraint. Shelley's Frankenstein shows what could happen if this balance is wrong. It's a cautionary tale, which is why it is so important. Scientists and other knowledge-seeking individuals must be careful in their pursuits by being aware of how their actions and discoveries affect humanity and the world as a whole. The world needs to have set guidelines in place for scientists and other researchers to be held accountable for their discoveries. If there are consequences for increasing things like global warming, the people won't be as inclined to overweigh the value of benefiting humanity. Improving the human condition is incredible, but not when it comes at the expense of nature and the world. Because if the world starts to decay due to human scientific advancements, then humanity will be worse off in the long run. And that is all. If you want my sources, I'm going to list the works cited page of this essay just on the description. So I hope you enjoyed. I hope that it was enjoyable, because I really liked writing this essay, and I thought it was a really good thing of writing, so I really wanted to just share it and immortalize it. So yeah, and I'll have more of these video essays because there's plenty of assignments to go through. So yeah, hope you have an amazing rest of your day, and goodbye.